Hi everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Swyftx Squawk. I'm Pav, lead market analyst here at Swyftx, and we're here to bring you the news that matters for crypto this week as we look forward to what could be on the road ahead. Now, this was a pretty big week for a couple of reasons, which we're going to dive into, but let's just start with the very obvious one. The very back again, on again, off again tensions in the Middle East. We're seeing the US and Iran really come to blows again after what we were told was a period of stability. We were given that sort of assurance that there was going to be a bit of an amnesty between the two sides not launching any attacks. And I don't know about you, but very happy with what I was seeing at the petrol pumps lately, with fuel prices dropping quite dramatically to the tune of where we've seen crude prices drop circa 20% in the last month. It's obviously been something we've all benefited from some degree, right? Now, if you missed it about 2 weeks ago, we did do a bit of a piece on why the price of oil is such a big deal when we look at the broader picture for digital asset markets. Particularly, we're interested in economic conditions amongst a wash of other things, but usually when the economic conditions are easing, it makes it easier, historically speaking, for assets like Bitcoin to appreciate in price and keep on appreciating. And with inflation being up in recent times, very quickly, just to show you what we did talk about, the component of energy is really one of the big standouts as to why inflation has really seen a bit of a kick. So then when we do see prices for oil drop quite dramatically, and we're starting to see these tensions start to flare up again, it does bring to life that question of like, all right, how long is it going to take for this to sort itself out, right? Because if it's a couple of weeks or a couple of months, maybe it's something the market could stand. But if it's going to drag on for quite a prolonged period of time, and we see oil prices continue to climb higher, that's, I think, a point where the market might get a little bit uneasy, a little bit unsure, and just we could see risk assets continue to remain subdued. And that's obviously something we don't know what's going to happen. It's something we're going to keep our eyes on as best as we can, but it seems like as much as we're on top of this sort of topic lately, as much as they do promise and say they're not going to do anything to retaliate or reignite these tensions, we only have the most recent thing we've seen of these things can be walked back quite quickly. So it's a bit of a tricky time for the market in that regard as to knowing what's going to come next. And we only have to look at a chart of Bitcoin to really try and understand, okay, the chart tells a pretty similar story. When we are like investors and are trying to understand where could Bitcoin's price go next, you really have three ways that price can move: sideways, trending higher, or trending lower. And I find the best way to explain this is to just explain to people a staircase. If you see a staircase going to the next level up, it's essentially just going one step higher than the other, right? A trend in the markets is the exact same thing. You're seeing higher highs form and also higher lows, which almost forms that staircase movement in price over time. So particularly where we are right now, we are at a previous high level. It's quite significant in the sense that this high was the last high before we made new yearly lows, where we touched that 50K region for the first time in this bear market period. So really, if we see the market continue to sell, if we could see this really be a pivot point and we start to move to make that lower high as a result of this, and a lower low usually comes next. Or if we do see for some reason for the market to become confident, this is a kind of point where we would want to see a bit of a push and start to see that next higher high. So we don't know what's going to happen next, but in terms of a framework to think about, how is the market thinking about this news? How is it thinking about how big of an issue oil is right now as being a major component of the inflation component of conditions becoming easier over the next 1 to 2 years? This is how I think about it just moving forward. And that's how I'll be looking at it. We do have a core inflation and headline inflation data metric coming out of the US as well next week. So it's all very good timing in that regard. So I do think we're going to see a bit of fireworks maybe next week as the market starts to realize a couple of things rather than try to guess what's going to happen when it comes to inflation and when it comes to this escalation, if there is a dampening or if we do just see the flames remain warmed up. But the ETFs are another barometer for just how things are going. We have seen the selling come back into the market. And we move to a weekly basis. We have seen just red straight weeks since about May as well. So it's still threatening to be potentially the first green week in quite a while, but we'll wait and see, right? But that's it from us here at Swyftx. Thanks.